2022. Welcome back inside the BT studio. Our chance to talk about Financial Literacy Month. Blair Mantin from Sands & Associates joining us right now. 5 things we didn't know about debt. And before we get into the tips, how are Canadians when it comes to managing their debt?
Well, we're not great, actually. If you can believe it, we're more indebted than even the United States. And we always think the U.S. are a little bit more, free spending consumers than us. But Canadians aren't great. What we're anticipating actually in 2019 is that a lot of people are going to have to deal with their debts. As interest rates go up, a lot of people are kind of dancing a fine balance, and it's going to be more difficult in 2019.
Well, it's a good thing you're here then.
Exactly. Let's get rid of all the myths so you know what to do. Right?
Yeah, okay, so let's talk about the idea of the relationship. If you owe the government money, is there a way to get out of that debt?
There is. Now, owing the government money is so stressful and so scary, right? So it's something you have to deal with. But there's really only one way to make a deal with the government if you owe them money. You've got to see a trustee, a licensed insolvency trustee, and you can do what's called a consumer proposal. And in a consumer proposal, the government agrees to stop all the interest, they reduce the debt down to what you can afford, and you pay off that reduced balance over a period of a couple of years. So it's a great option, not a bankruptcy, and that's how you can make a deal with the government on your debt.
What's the trade-off financially of what your reality is like after making a deal like that?
Well, in a consumer proposal, you usually pay back about a third to a half of the debt. So usually financially, you're much better off. You don't have a big payment that you can't afford each month. You're able to hopefully save a little bit of money.
Okay, spouses. Do you assume your spouse's debt as soon as you get married?
Not legally, and this is a huge myth, Riaz, and it leads to couples making completely the wrong decision collectively because, say, one person's got a bunch of assets and the other person has a big student loan, for example. The other spouse doesn't have to go and pay off the student loan, pay off the credit card debt, so on and so forth, using their assets. There's nothing that holds a partner responsible just by being married or cohabitating. Unless your name is on the invoice for a debt, you don't owe that regardless of marriage, so consider each person individually. And one person could choose to restructure their debts. It wouldn't impact the other person's assets, the other person's credit at all. And that's usually the better decision for a couple, is to consider individually what should we be doing.
But you could still be a good loving partner and help out just a little bit.
Of course you could, yeah. And what might be great, too, is if one person needs to do a consumer proposal, help the person pay it off sooner, help them make extra payments, get them out of it, help them rebuild their credit more quickly. You can definitely work together, but working together might not mean paying off for 20 years, big interest rates, and not doing the right thing.
Okay, when it comes to bankruptcy, if you declare bankruptcy, does this mean you lose everything?
Most people think that, Riaz, and that's the biggest fear, is that, bankruptcy is going to be this horrible thing. A trustee is going to come to your house and literally cart away all your furniture. The answer is no. Most people keep almost everything they have if they file for bankruptcy. Really important ones, you keep all your household furniture. I've never shown up at anyone's house except for dinner. You keep your furniture, you keep your clothing, you even keep your RRSPs, if you can believe it. So money you've saved for retirement, you don't have to cash that in to pay debts. If you're thinking of doing that, stop now, learn the rules, and figure out you do have some options. Most people keep everything after they go through a bankruptcy.
So if you do go through the bankruptcy, then what does that essentially do to your credit score rating?
Yeah, and that's the big impact. If you go through a bankruptcy, the benefit is you get to leave all the debt behind. The negative is that your credit rating takes a hit. Now, it's not that you're never going to get credit again. It's not that you're untouchable for the rest of your life. What it is when you finish a bankruptcy, and most of the time that's after 9 months, for the next 6 years, if someone pulls a credit report, they're going to see you went into bankruptcy. Doesn't mean they're not going to loan you money. Most of the time, people within 2 to 3 years after bankruptcy are a better credit risk than when they started because they've got no debt. They've been able to save money. They pay everything on time, so you can rebuild.
And overall, we hear so much about credit score, its importance on your financial health. Is that truly the real indicator? It's
one indicator, but it's not the only one. And you've got to think about a credit rating as a means to an end. So what's your goal? If your goal, Riaz, is you want to, get a down payment on a property, you got to make sure you can save that money each month. And if you're preserving perfect credit because you're paying all your debts each month, you're probably not able to save money. So all a credit rating does is measure is how much money do you make the banks each month? Do you pay them all their interest? Do you pay all the charges? Are you never late on something? It doesn't measure, do you actually have some savings? Are you financially solvent? A person who never uses credit, has their house paid off, has a very poor credit rating, whereas someone who's $50,000 in debt, pays all the minimums every month, has a better credit rating. But who would you rather be? I'd rather be the person with assets.
All right, 5 great tips to cover off. And if you want to help plan, there you see the website, sandstrustee.com. Blair, thanks very much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
If we don't see you before, happy holidays.
Same to you.
I'm jumping early on that one. Happy holidays to Blair. Listen, we'll take a break. More to talk.